Hey, Master of Speed, it's Terramaster, and as you can see on the other side of my face, it's Justice's face. I'm not going to try with these directions. So, there he is. Here we are.
Whoa.
And what are we doing today, Justice?
We are going to review some of the contents of the new Speed Duel GX Duel Academy box. I think that was the full name, right? Yeah, got it right. Bam, first try. We're going to be looking today specifically at the new cards that we didn't already have that were introduced in the decks for Alexis Rhodes and Jesse Anderson.
Yep. So this is the first part because I wanted to go ahead and do what I believe will be the strongest, if not one of the strongest decks, which is like already very obvious. We'll get into that from the new box. Go ahead and get that done first, and then we'll go on to part 2, which will be my favorite piece of the box, which is Heroes. So enough about what's going to happen later, but right now we're talking about Alexis is who we'll start with. As you can see, a nice little picture of her already up on the screen. So let's actually start with one of the monsters that she actually summoned in her very first duel appearance in the anime, and that's Cyberblader, right? When we start with any fusion monster, we have to start with the pieces. So you've got Blade Skater and Eto Cyber, so no real surprises here, right? The surprise, the different, I guess, thing, everybody kind of knew this would happen when it's a GX box and Alexa's going to be in it, is the surprising thing is the skill we got. Now, Justice, you want to tell them about the skill?
Yeah, so the pieces by themselves, as well as Cyber, the other thing that makes the Cyberblader are obviously that's all Cyberblade Skater. Thank you.
Yes.
They are nothing by themselves. Like they're not monsters that you're counting on doing anything by themselves. And then even with that, the Cyberblader itself, it's interesting. So I think let's talk about the Cyberblader itself, and then we'll get to the skill.
Right.
So you have to use those two monsters. If your opponent its effects are based on how many monsters your opponent controls. So if they have exactly one, Cyberblader can't be destroyed by battle. If they have exactly 2, its attack gets doubled, which 4,200 attack, honestly, in a 4,000 life point format can be kind of scary, but it's obviously not attacking directly because it's if your opponent has 2 monsters. And then very
importantly, 4,200 is more than 3,500.
It is very importantly more than 3,500. That is true.
Yeah.
But then Cyberblader really gets crazy actually if your opponent has 3 monsters, which in Speed Duel means all their monster zones are filled. Because then the effects of their spell, trap, and effect monsters are all negated. It is not a once per turn, it is not a thing you need to activate, it is just its effect.
It's continuous negation. That's actually disgusting. But obviously then you have to find another win con, right? So
yeah, because the downside then is you are back to 2,100 attack, so while all their stuff is negated, it's still not that hard to necessarily run it over in battle, so you still have to be careful there. But
yeah, exactly.
So it's an interesting card. But so yeah, as you said, we got a skill to help out with the summoning of Cyberblader.
Yep.
Which is Cyberblader Fusion, very creative name. You want to go over that skill?
Yes, sure. So skill has a discard cost. So you discard the card. So essentially, any card you're substituting for Poly there with a discard is what I like to think of it as. And then you're using Cyberblader or Eto Cyber, either one from your field. But then the other one you can send from hand, field, deck, or deck. And that's kind of the advantage you gain. So like you're still discarding the card to substitute for Poly, but then you only need one fusion material, and the other one you can just send from your deck is the ideal situation, right? So you're essentially gaining that losing. You're not losing the 2 cards you would lose from a normal fusion summon, like because the normal fusion summon is Poly plus 2 monsters is a -2, right? This is reducing how neg you go off the fusion, making it only a -1. So using 2 cards to summon a boss monster is nowhere near as bad as using 3 cards to summon a boss monster. So right. It also gives you 400 attack, which is something.
It is. I mean, especially when you consider that now, if you are trying to get that 3 effect, it's 2,500 instead of 21. It's a little bit bigger. And then, of course, if it's doubled, if it's at 25, it's now doubling to 5,000 instead of to 4,200.
Which is actually somehow significantly more than 4,200. Like, 5,000 is quite a hefty girl there, and she can do a lot of damage. So another thing important for 2,500 specifically, I say instead of 21, is like think about a lot of like the monsters that have been played in Speed Duels. right? Like you've got your monarchs, which are all in between that range. You've got your Colossalus, if you run into Spellproof, which is exactly in that, greater than 21 but less than 25 range. So it actually could be pretty relevant. So, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't know how you want to go into like other box stuff, but I mean, we did get Cyberdragon in this box as well. So crashing Cyberdragon versus being able to beat it in battle can be relevant too.
Yes. Yeah, that's correct. Because your opponent can just if they have just Cyberdragon, that wouldn't work. But if they had the 3 monsters and one of them was Cyberdragon, they could just kill you. So, so definitely something else to think about. And you may be thinking, hey, Terramaster, Justice, but what would a deck using this skill look like? Well, fear not, for we have a sample deck list for you, and it will load up right now. It's there. So don't pay attention to the other stuff yet. So since the skill, we'll look at it again, is twice per duel, not once, thank God. It's twice per duel, so you have 2 of each material, obviously. So essentially, you're summoning Cyberblader twice per duel with your skill, is the goal. And you have Rhoda here, so that it should be extremely consistent, because any one of these 7 cards, opening them gives you guaranteed Cyberblader.
Right.
And
it's worth noting, and we'll see, the deck list as well. This is not necessarily like a fully optimized deck.
Yes.
It's just a concept, just to show you kind of what's possible,
Yes.
with a deck that might be looking to do this.
Yes, essentially the core of the deck is this piece, these 7 cards right here, right?
Right.
The other 13 cards can pretty much be whatever you want. Now, the direction we decided to go is to give you like other Rhoda targets, right? DD Warrior Lady, which we'll talk about in a second as we go back, is one of the best ones now. Gymnast is halfway decent. And then the rest of it is literally just staples we already have in Speed Duels. So, like, those 13 cards could be anything you want it to be. Just the core of your deck is 7 cards. It's what it comes down to, right?
Yeah, which is kind of a neat thing, that it gives you flexibility in how you want to build a deck if you
Right.
want to try this out.
And I haven't thought about anything like this, but it also gives you the flexibility to like combine it with another deck, right? Like Cyberblader or something else. So
Sure.
I don't know what people will come up with, but it at least gives you that space where it's not like Unions where your main deck core takes up 18 cards. So going back to the full list here, now we talk about some other Alexis cards that are like either to support these Cyberblader materials or just kind of generic cards. So we've got Warrior Lady of the Wasteland, which floats into either material. So it can give you another way to 1, be defensive /stall /float, and 2, get out your materials to pop off your skill. So that's one potential use for it, right? It's also just want to build an Earth Warrior generic deck that doesn't use the Alexa skill, here's an option, go for it, right?
Also, worth noting that it can float into itself, so you have
Yes.
one copy actually gives you a fair amount of stall / board presence if you need it.
Yeah, exactly. And then you can even go nuts and combine them with Giant Rat to have a whole bunch of floaters.
Yeah.
So, go nuts. Other targets for Warrior Lady of Wasteland, though, one sec before I'm just going to skip over a card here. We've got Cyber 2/2 Gymnast, like I already talked about. So, these are also Alexis cards. Gymnast is, I think, actually good because you can just discard cards that you don't need and destroy a monster. I do feel like Speed Duel doesn't have enough of these effects. Yes, we have something like Exiled Force, but Exiled Force essentially kills itself, right, to destroy a monster. Whereas Gymnast can keep board presence and still also activate multiple times. So obviously once per turn, but if it survives through the next turn, you can just use it again. It's not dead. So I don't know. What do you think of this thing?
Yeah, I think it has some potential uses, and I think Exile Force is a good comp. It's basically, do you value board presence more or cards in hand? So if you want your cards in hand, you can use Exiled. If you want your board presence, you can use Gymnast.
Right.
And but it is cool that, as I said, it's a target for Warrior Lady of the Wasteland. It's it's 800 attack, so it's not huge, but again, we're in a 4,000 life point format, so don't completely discount it.
Let's actually talk about probably, I think, the best generic card we got in the box. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, it very well might be. Yeah, I mean, DD Warrior Lady was a staple of just TCG for a long time.
Yes.
On its release. For those unfamiliar, 1500 attack, 1600 defense. After damage calculation, if it battles, so whether it attacks or is attacked, it's optional. You can choose to banish DD Warrior Lady along with the monster that it battled. So it's just really nice generic removal. And it's banishing, not sending to the graveyard. So as you said, anything that does have a graveyard effect, it's going to deny those.
Yes.
Fortunately, in Speed Duels, we actually don't really have ways of accessing the banished pile right now. Like, currently, banished actually is banished, really, in
Yes.
Speed Duels.
Yes. Yeah.
So it's actually really nice. It's just really good generic removal. 1500 attack is not amazing, but not terrible. But yeah, it's just really nice generic removal that can go into almost any deck. Really,
Yeah.
especially any deck using Roto.
Right, and one of the issues with Speed Duels has been like a lot of decks have had an issue of like, okay, but this deck is good, but like how does it deal with big monsters, right?
Yeah.
Like same thing with the Cyberblader deck we just went into, right? Like it was, other than Gymnast and DD Warrior Lady, how do you deal with anything stronger than 2100 if they don't go stupid and double your attack, right? And the answer to that is going to be, a lot of times DD Warrior Lady now for those decks. So it's a really good option to have. It's also really good, like you talked about, to have something that actually banishes cards. Because I think about things like the Relinquish loop, right? You no longer have to side garbage like DD Crow to out that. You can just side a really good card or just main deck a really good card, honestly, especially since we have Rhoda, to have outs to like, floating effects like that too. So for that reason, I think expect to see a lot of DD Warrior Lady, and if you have space in your deck for normal summonable monsters, go ahead and put DD Warrior Lady in there. That's what I say. So
agreed.
All right.
And we can pretty much skip Cyber 2-2. The card is just for flavor. It doesn't.
Yeah,
don't.
Yeah, we don't need to talk about it. I'll put it's on the screen for a second here, so read it if you want. Here's Cyber Prima. Again, same thing. It's on the screen for a second here. Read it if you want. Yeah. All right. Now we're moving on to the second Alexis deck, and this is why I wanted to do an Alexis video first, because this is arguably going to be the best deck of the new box. So the best new deck, right? Hopefully just the best deck of the format, because I want a new deck to be the best deck of the format. Yeah. And that is Cyber Angels. Mm-hmm. And I mean, in every single format that they've existed, Cyber Angels have been good when they first came out, right? Whether that's Duel Links or now Speed Duels. So a big part of that is Ben 10. As you can see, it has that one circle. It's limited in the TCG because of how generic the effect is. Which effect, Terramaster, you may ask? Well, the last one. If it's distributed, you add a Light Fairy monster from your deck to hand. Not a Cyber Angel monster, a Light Fairy monster. Any Light Fairy monster. That's why this is a card that is powerful now, but it's only going to get more powerful as we get more Light Fairy monsters in Speed Duels. But let's talk about now, right? Mm-hmm. So now, I'm going to actually let Justice tell you about the full Cyber Angel combo. So there's also Editen, and there's also Izana, which is your big boss monster. So kind of take them through how these three cards combine to be really good. Obviously, we should talk about Machine Angel Ritual as well. So yeah,
absolutely. So of course, Machine Angel Ritual is what we're using to ritual summon. Benton and Editen have a really nice synergy with each other. As Terramaster mentioned, Benton's tributed, you search a Light Fairy. But if Editen is tributed, what do we get? Oh, hey, look at that. We can add a ritual spell from our deck or graveyard.
If Editen is summoned.
Yeah, or if it's summoned, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So you have just the built-in combo of using your Machine Angel Ritual, tributing your Benton to summon Editen, which now is going to let you search your deck for another Light Fairy and another Machine Angel Ritual, or any ritual, that you want, but I mean, if you're playing Cyber, it's going to be Machine Angel Ritual.
Yeah.
So you get an Editen on the board, then you get 2 searches, and then guess what? Editen plus any other monster lets you summon your boss monster for Cyber Angels, which is Izana, since we did not get Takini in the box, which is sad, but whatever. But Izana is still quite good. When it's ritual summoned, you can make your opponent send 1 spell or trap they control to the graveyard, which is really nice. It's not destruction.
Yes, I want to give a quick rulings alert on this. Izana will not trigger Waking the Dragon.
Right.
Because it forces your opponent to send, and you're not sending by your effect. So,
Yep.
Yep.
Which is a funny little Yu-Gi-Oh thing.
Yes.
But yes, so it's built-in back row removal. If Editen is tributed to summon it, it's going to gain 1,000 attacks. Now it's 3,500. And if it attacks and destroys an opponent's monster by battle, you can attack another monster they control that turn.
Yeah.
And if that's not enough for you, there's more. Because if any of your, I believe, Cyber Angels are targeted, correct me if I'm wrong.
Yes, any Cyber Angel. Yeah.
Over here.
Yeah.
If any of your Cyber Angels are targeted by a card or effect that's activated, you can shuffle a ritual monster from your graveyard into the deck and destroy one card your opponent controls. So it doesn't negate the effect that targeted, but it says, well, you targeted me with anything, I destroy a card you control.
Yep. So you might be saying...
it's gonna feel quite good.
You might be saying, but Justice, target, what cards do that are relevant in Speed Duels right now?
Oh, gee, I don't know. All of them. Book of Moon is probably a real good one. Offerings to the Doomed. A new one that we got was Super Rush Recklessly, which targets, and Izana actually just incidentally negates Super Rush Recklessly.
Yes,
she can just
yeah.
that they're trying to use for it.
Yes, yeah, it's pretty good, pretty good.
Yeah,
actually,
so
that actually fits in here. Yeah, keep going.
Yep. Oh, there we go. Hey, we got it. Nice. Also, if I'm not mistaken, I do believe that Parasite Paranoid is an effect that targets.
Yeah?
So while, again, it will not stop them from parasiting your card, if they have any other cards in their field, you do get to, blow it up.
Yep. So if they summon Zoma and end phase, let's say, right, that they didn't send Zoma to the graveyard, and then they parasite, afterwards, you can pop that Zoma. Even if Zoma was face down, if they have another back row when they parasite, you destroy that back row. So you are... Like, what, the regular Moth Plague goes, like, what, +2, right? So you're reducing that down to +1, which is, like, a big kind of, like, nerf to that.
Yeah.
So
Izana is still very, very good.
Yes. Not to mention XYZ Dragon Cannon.
Yes, thank you. Another
What's that? You want to destroy Izana? Well, you die too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
And then, the spell that's tying this all together, of course, is the Machine Angel Ritual. What's nice is that it's if the levels equal or exceed, does not have to exactly equal, which is good. And then the great part is that after you use it to summon your Cyber Angels, it actually has a graveyard effect. That if a light monster you control would be destroyed by battle or card effect while it's in your grave, you can banish the Machine Angel Ritual instead. So in that scenario you just gave, where XYZ targets Izana responds by targeting the XYZ, and then you banish the Machine Angel Ritual, so your Izana doesn't even get destroyed.
Yep. So XYZ just, like, really loses hard to Izana.
It basically blows itself up, which is great.
Yes. Yeah. So, sorry, Unions, but you're going to lose really bad to Cyber Angels. Just saying.
So it's a really nice package that we got. Again, being able to play Benton at 3, Edaton at 3, Izana you're probably going to play at 1 or 2, Machine Angel Ritual at 2 or 3. It's a really nice core for the deck. Now, we did also get a skill for this, so let's go ahead and show that other Alexa skill, Machine Angel Ascension. It is designed to try to make this more consistent. So once returned during your main phase, you can use one or the other of these. You cannot use them both in the same turn. They actually made the wording of that clear, which is nice. You can either discard one spell from your hand and then add a Cyber Angel Ritual monster or Machine Angel Ritual spell to your hand. So any of those monsters we just talked about, or the Machine Angel Ritual. Or you can shuffle a Cyber Angel Ritual monster or Machine Angel Ritual spell from your graveyard into the deck. The first effect would be the more common one to use, but the second one kind of just lets you extend further if you've used all your pieces and you need more. It lets you do it.
Now, before we go into a sample deck, I want to talk about one potential use of this skill that I thought about just now. Okay. And that is to discard a Machine Angel Ritual to add another one. Just to have your graveyard set up with multiple Destruction Protect.
Right, absolutely. And I think that is probably part of the design of it, is specifically for that reason. And
I will say one thing, this last bit, it reminds you of a little half agreed from another skill that we all know and tolerate. Except if it said draw one card, it would be so much better. Right?
Yeah.
Oh, well. So
draw one card, we might use this skill.
Yes. So Konami, if you want this skill to be used, I would suggest the errata of draw one card. But speaking of Cyber Angel deck, you will be saying, well, if you can't use the skill, how do you think the deck is going to be the best in the GX box? Well, there's another skill we have. It's called Ritual Ceremony. And it's used as this little NPC duelist, which is, funny. But yeah, it literally just, because your deck, as you can see right here, has far more monsters than spells, or, well, not really, but you have a lot more monsters. With the Senju, you do have more monsters than spells, all right? You have 11 monsters, 9 spells, and Senju is another monster producer, right? So you essentially have more targets for Ritual Ceremony than you did for the Alexis skill itself, and there's no cost. There's 0 cost for the same amount of plussing. Right.
And that's kind of it. With Senju, it's very consistent that you're going to have at least one ritual monster in your hand. So Ritual Ceremony is going to be very easy to activate.
Yes.
Whereas Machine Angel Ascension said it has a cost. You have to discard a spell specifically. And honestly, this deck, as outside of the case you mentioned, where if you have an extra Machine Angel ritual, you don't mind discarding, that's cool, extra protection. But, like, again, this may not be the fully optimized version of Cyber Angels. We'll see what those look like.
Yeah.
But here, like, you want your Book of Moons, right? You want that protection.
Yes.
Like, you want your Cosmic Cyclones, because while Izana does send a back row, it is one back row. So dealing with multiples can be tricky. Or you might just want a Cosmic first if you have the option, so that they can't just respond with a Book of Moon of their own, let's say.
Yes.
So, like, discarding the spell actually can be a little bit annoying.
Yeah.
Now, I will say, if you do play Machine Angel Ascension, and I still do kind of want to play around with that version a bit, it does mean you don't necessarily have to run Senju anymore, and then you can open up those slots for something else. Could be a Cyberdragon, could be a DD Warrior Lady. You can open up those slots for something more, but it might lower the consistency of the deck a little bit. This version feels more consistent right now. We'll kind of see where things go, but know that you have options as far as how you want to build the deck.
I can definitely agree with that. So if you were to use the Alexis skill, the core of your deck would essentially just be the Cyber Angel monsters plus Machine Angel Ritual, which again does give you some flexibility on what the rest of the deck can be. So yeah, if you can figure out something good for that.
A really strong core for the deck that, as you said, is not like Unions. It's not 18 cards. It's the core. So
yeah.
It leaves room for creativity in deck building, which is really neat.
Right. Yeah. So I mean, like Justice went into essentially, the combo is you tribute Ben 10 to summon Ida 10, get the double surge, and then you go into your Izana, send a back row. It's got protection from the grave and from itself, where it reacts to destroy cards, and it's 3,500. So it's just really good, really consistent. And then with the Ben 10 effects, if you happen to have a second Ben 10. Or you somehow have this another Senju, like the follow-up is very easy to do as well, right? Like, it's very easy to imagine.
That's the interesting part compared to something like Moth, whereas like the Moth is slightly stronger initially because you contribute your opponent's monster.
Yes.
If you out the Moth, like that was the deck's big play, right? Like this deck can follow up with more, and I think more easily, which is really interesting.
Precisely, yeah. So once they're done, they're done. And then I've also had, while testing, these scenarios where you kind of just win the game with Ben 10. Where like if your follow-up can also literally just be tribute Ida 10 to summon Ben 10, a 2800 Ben 10, which when it destroys a monster at battle can just burn your opponent for the rest of the life points that they have left.
Yeah.
So Ben 10 is really good. Is I think a good place to leave it off.
Yes. Ben 10 is good. There's your expert analysis.
Yes. Yes. All right. Let's talk about now some like other cards that were in the Alexis pile, and that Alexis, some of them used in the anime. I remember explicitly, right? Like Ritual Weapon is something to make your specifically Ben 10 and Ida 10 get boosted, right? Mm-hmm. So I guess you could also technically boost Relinquish, but I don't see anyone doing that. But yeah, you could.
I mean, sure.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not a good card. Just equips in general are not very good. We have a lot of back row hate.
Yes.
So it's not very good. Plus, it's only level 6 or lower. You can't equip it to Izana. So yeah, it would just be like, all right, cool. We made our Benton with Ida 10. It's 28. We give it another 1,500 attack. It's 4,300. Oh yeah.
Ben
and
10.
then they book mode it, and then your spell goes away, and yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, don't play this card, probably. But
also, don't play this card.
Definitely don't play that card.
You're gaining 1,000 attack one time, so it's a battle trick, which is like, maybe. But then, no, because it can't attack directly, and it loses 2,000 attack. So bad card.
Bad card.
That is all. All right. If there's also Hallowed Life Barrier, which I feel like some people will play because people, but again,
all card. Let's be real. It is what it is.
It's literally bad Wabaku. But
yeah,
unless you're protecting specifically from effect damage, but it's like, like that's so niche. Like
anti-burn.
Yeah, exactly.
When burn takes over the meta, we have Hallowed Life Barrier, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. There you go. There you go. When we get Lava Golem 4000 version, we have Hallowed Life Barrier, so don't worry about that. There's also this card, which I'll let you pronounce and talk about.
Sure. So this is Mobile Passe. It is a card that Alexis used during the anime as well.
Yes.
So this is interesting, right? So it is conditional. If your opponent attacks a face-up attack position monster you control, so it has to be those conditions. You make the attack direct attack instead, and inflict damage to your opponent equal to the attack of the attack target you control. And then your monster can attack directly during your opponent's next turn. So you're trading taking a bigger hit to your life points for protecting your monster, dealing some burn damage, and allowing that monster to attack directly. Yeah. There are some use cases for this card. I know people are going to mess around with it and try something. It's not like a staple. It's not going to be in every deck, I don't think. But there are cases where it can be useful. I know some people are talking about something like a Raging Flame Sprite burn.
20 minutes later.
I think that's all we got for Alexis, right?
Yep.
Time to move on to Jesse Anderson. When you talk about Jesse Anderson, you have to talk about Rainbow Dragon and the Crystal Beast. So let's go through Rainbow Dragon really quick. It's unplayable. It needs you to have 7 different name Crystal Beast in your field and or graveyard to summon. And then
it's Crystal Beast cards. Do we have any non-monster Crystal Beast cards? I don't think so, right?
No, I don't think so. And then also you can send all Crystal Beast monsters to the graveyard. It gains 1,000 attack for each, which is, oh, I guess it didn't have enough attack points already. Let's make that half of its effect. Then you also banish all Crystal Beast monsters from your graveyard and shuffle all cards on the field into the deck, including itself. So that's not a quick effect. That second part, it's not all that great. And first of all, summoning is going to be almost impossible too. So,
and there's also the part that it cannot activate its effects on the turn that it's summoned.
Ah, yes, I forgot about that. Yeah. So very restrictive. Vanilla 4,000 for the turn it's summoned. So just no.
Yeah.
Just.
But still, it's huge. It's 4,000.
Yeah.
Which
pretty big.
Huge. I mentioned earlier, bigger than 3,500.
Yep. And we did not get a skill that specifically helps you summon Rainbow Dragon ignoring summoning conditions, which is what I was hoping for. But alas. Okay. All right, let's move on to the Crystal Beasts themselves. We start with the ace, which is Sapphire Pegasus. So Sapphire Pegasus it has the highest attack points base of any Crystal Beast. It facilitates your spell and trap zone, right? And is that all it does? Yeah, I think that's all it does. So it facilitates thinning your deck and putting them to your spell and trap zone. So it starts setting them up.
Yeah, which Crystal Beasts revolve around having the Crystal Beast in your spell and trap zone, so Pegasus does a really good job of setting you up for other plays.
Yeah. And then there's, Amethyst Cat, which can attack directly for 600, which is, fine. Amber Mammoth, which chooses your opponent's attack target, whatever. Ruby Carbuncle spams the field potentially if you special summon it. Tortoise really doesn't have an effect.
Yeah, actually has no effect in Speed Duels. Yep.
just defense mode. Topaz Tiger can go up to 2,000 when it attacks, which is, playable, I guess. Cobalt Eagle recycles a card to the top of your deck, which, I don't know, I guess that would be useful. The format was extremely slow, but, it's not. So
yeah, don't play Cobalt Eagle.
Yeah. So those are your 7 different named Crystal Beasts. And how are you supposed to even make these cards semi-usable, right? And that's where the skills come in. So why don't you tell them about the better skill, in our opinion, Crystal Transcendence.
Yeah, Transcendence is great. So this is actually a very slightly modified version of a Duel Link skill. So they decided to go ahead and import that into Speed Duels. However, they did restrict a little bit more. So while it's face up, you can only summon or set crystal monsters and dragon monsters. But once per turn during your main phase, send up to 3 cards from your hand to the graveyard, choose as many Crystal Beast monsters with different names from your deck, and place them in your spell and trap zone as continuous spells, and it can actually be used twice per duel, not just once. Now, you're pretty much never going to send 3, because why would you want to put 3 Crystal Beasts into your spell and trap zone, thereby
clog it up? Yes.
Trap?
Never.
Probably not your best play.
No.
But 1 or 2 is usually fine, because again, we have a lot of effects that are going to use those Crystal Beasts in the spell and trap zone, so the skill just helps you set it up immediately, So normally with Crystal Beast, opening up just say a rare value, which is one of our cards, and we can actually take a look at that now because it's very relevant to the deal. Without say like Pegasus, plus something else, I guess is pretty much a brick because that's your Pot of Greed.
Yes.
Well, now it's not because Transcendence can just go ahead and immediately put 2 Crystal Beasts into your spell and trap zone to make rare value live turn 1. Yeah. Last I heard, Pot of Greed is a pretty good card.
Yeah, so you're discarding 2, but think about it as you're discarding 2 to thin your deck by 2, which is really good on its own, and then you're also allowing yourself to activate Pot of Greed, which is, again, a really good card. Yeah. So, why don't we just go ahead and talk about all the other cards that are live because of the skill, the good cards, right?
Yeah.
So, even Crystal Raigeki, right? And this is one I was really hoping we'd get, because this is one of the best Crystal Beast cards that's not completely just overpowered, right? Where you just need 1 Crystal Beast in your spawn trap zone, and then you just essentially target and card your opponent control destroy it. So it's Raigeki Break for those of you that know that card, except instead of the discard cost, the cost is just 1 Crystal Beast from your spawn trap card zone. So that's really good. We don't have enough targeted destruction in Speed Duels, like I've already mentioned. So this is really, really good to have, and makes Crystal Beast unique, which is why I like getting this and not getting Raigeki Break, because it makes this one deck unique in that, hey, look, this deck has the ability to target and destroy any card. Other decks can't do that, right? Yeah. So whether that's back row, whether that's a face-up monster, a face-down monster, it's extremely flexible, and that's what makes it a 3 of in any Crystal Beast deck, I think.
Right.
Then the third good card is Crystal Conclave. Now, why don't you go into Conclave?
Yeah, this card is actually nuts.
Yeah.
So it is a continuous trap. Once per turn, if you have a face-up Crystal Beast monster you control, it's destroyed by battle or card effect, you can special summon a Crystal Beast monster from your deck. So that's already very good. It just once per turn, Crystal Beast replaces another Crystal Beast. That's great. However, the really nuts part of this card is you can send this face-up card from the field to the grave, target a Crystal Beast card you control, which could be a monster or one that's in your spell and trap zone, and 1 card on the field, either player's field, return them to the hand.
Yeah.
So that's pretty nuts. So we have targeted destruction in Raigeki, and then you have targeted bounce in Conclave. So you can take a Crystal Beast from your spell and trap zone, bounce it back to your hand so you can resummon as a monster next turn if you want, and also bounce something on your opponent's field back to their hand. The only thing to be aware of is you cannot activate Crystal Conclave and activate that effect since it has to already be face up.
Yes.
So
it does tell you that in the last sentence of the card, so be aware of that. The point of this card, I think, is really to get one of your big attack point monsters back, preferably Pegasus, right? And bounce your opponent's boss monster, and then on your next turn, your Pegasus should be able to go in for 18, essentially, right?
And helping and refill the spell and trap zone with more Crystal Beasts.
Right, so you can pop off with all your other cards. Right, exactly. Yeah. So that's that. Let's talk about some of the cards that are, less good now. Right. So there's the field spell, which I think is meant to be used with the second skill. So might as well take this time to talk about the second skill. So field spell has different effects that get more and more progressively powerful as you get more Crystal Beast in your spell and trap card zones, right? So obviously we only have 3 zones in Speed Duels normally, so you wouldn't be able to use the once per turn draw card or once per turn target a Crystal Beast and special summoning. But you would if you played Rainbow Crystal Collection. So what Rainbow Crystal Collection does, it's really weird, is that Lucas actually messaged me, like, I don't understand this card. So I think this is one important one to explain. If a Crystal Beast monster will be destroyed, you can put a crystallization counter on the monster, and it stays in the zone instead of being destroyed. So it stays in the monster zone, but it's still treated as a continuous spell in your spell and trap zone. So it's essentially giving you 2 extra, or up to 6, I guess, technically, right? It's giving you up to 6 spell and trap zones by using your monster zone. So without breaking the mechanics of the game, you're still getting 6 spell and trap zones. And they worded it in a way that's nice, where with the crystallization counters, it's not generic. So not every deck can just play this card and be like, look, I have 6 spell and trap zones. Let me put 6 trap cards on the field that completely stuns you from doing anything. But instead, it only works with Crystal Beasts. So that's really good. And then obviously if they would be special summoned, you remove the counter. So this can be used with not only the Rainbow City, but also potentially with Ruby Carbuncle, where you special summon Ruby Carbuncle, and then you can just spam the field with any 2 other Crystal Beasts you want. So pretty good stuff there. And let's just go through the first 3 effects, I guess.
There's actually one more thing. Go back to the skill. There's one last part of it that we didn't talk about.
What is it?
Which is the last part. The cards with crystallization
can
also be used as fusion materials for ultimate crystal monsters. So technically, even though they become spells and traps, they actually become more useful than normal crystal beast spells and traps, because then they can still basically count as monsters if you're summoning Overdragon boss.
Yeah, and I guess why not take this time to talk about Rainbow Overdragon, right? So, I guess you would need to have Poly plus this skill plus a lot of setup, but like, it's not impossible, right? Probably make a meme video about it at some point. There's Rainbow Overdragon. So it needs to be fusion summoned or summoned by tributing a level 10 ultimate crystal monster, which is right now Rainbow Dragon and Rainbow Dark Dragon, which I thought we added in here.
Yeah, I thought we did too.
Dueling Book obviously doesn't like me. It's not Dark Dragon, it's Dark Dragon. There it is. Okay.
There we go. Yep,
those 2. So yeah, those 2 right now. So, but it's if you can actually summon it, or we get an easier way to summon it in the future, it's a really good card, right? It once per turn manages to quickly once it gains attack, so it can really go for the OTK hard by getting up to 1800 extra attack from Pegasus. And then the quick effect. Now here's what makes this really good. It's a quick effect where you tribute itself and you shuffle all cards from the field into deck. So your opponent's making a big play to counterplay your Rainbow Overdragon. You're like, nah, just gonna send everything back to your deck there real quick. Bye. So,
unlike regular Rainbow Dragon, it can activate its effect the turn it's summoned.
Right, exactly. So if you summon it, your opponent has an out to it, you can just say, nah, I'm just going to return other cards to your deck instead of you outing my monster as Chain Link 2. So, really good. We did add Rainbow Dark Dragon. It's really nothing. You banish 7 Dark Monsters with different names instead of 7 Crystal Beasts, so like slightly more generic, but then the effect is just bad. Like, it's almost a vanilla 4000, which gets vanilla stronger. So, I don't know. Don't play Rainbow Dark Dragon. Okay, we talked about rare value. You want to talk about the rest of these crystal cards?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
They're bad. Anyway, so Crystal Blessing. I'll explain why they're bad. So Crystal Blessing sounds like it could be useful on paper, right?
Yeah.
So you target crystal beasts in your grave, place them as faceless spell and traps. So you're like, well, you just talked about how good that is with the skill, right? Because you want to use it for rare value and Crystal Raigeki and Crystal Conclave. And it's like, yeah. But the thing is that you have to first have those in your graveyard. So it's not an effect you're going to use quickly, unlike the skill. And the other thing, too, is if you already have, say, Crystal Raigeki set, right? Well, Crystal Blessing can only put 1 Crystal Beast on your field now. It can't put 2.
Yeah.
Because it itself is taking up a spell and trap zone while it's resolving.
Yes.
So if you already have any card set, well, now you can only put 1 instead of 2 because Speed Duels only has 3 zones. So it's like, it's kind of conditional, it's slower, and you might not even be able to use its full effect anyway due to the fact we only have 3 spell and trap zones.
Yeah. Not only that, it requires graveyard to be set up.
Yep. Yeah.
So
it can be useful, but it's probably not worth using.
No, probably not. Okay, Crystal Promise.
Crystal Promise. This one's interesting to me. Its biggest use generally in TCG would come for using its effect to special summon Ruby Carbuncle from your spell and trap zone, which would then, as you talked about, allow you to special summon more Crystal Beasts. But we run into the same problem here. We only have 3 spell and trap zones. So if Carbuncle is in one of your spell and trap zones, and then you have to use another one for Crystal Promise, Carbuncle can summon exactly 1 monster, because that's all you got left.
Right.
The only difference is, again, unless you're using the skill we were just talking about, Rainbow Crystal Collection, then maybe Carbuncle can summon 2.
Yes. But
like some crystallization counters.
But again, that requires so much setup. You're just by the time you get there, you'll probably be dead.
Yeah. And again, that's the problem. These are cards that are much slower, that take a lot more setup to work, and are therefore probably not worth it.
Yeah. As you can see, the actual picture on the card, the art is actually a ruby as well, so it's literally meant to be used with Carbuncle. But yeah. All right. Crystal Release.
So yeah, this one is an equip, which we just talked about how good those are. Gains 800 attack, which is like, okay. I mean, it can bump Pegasus up to 26, which is, pretty cool.
Yeah.
The more important part is that if it's sent from the field to the grave, you can place a Crystal Beast monster from your deck face up in your spell and trap zone. So again, helps to fill up your spell and trap zone with Crystal Beasts, but again, slower, and it's an equip card, and while unlike some other equips, it at least has a beneficial effect if it gets sent to the grave. You have to balance this versus any other card you could be playing in that same slot.
Yeah, it's also the beneficial effect. I think it's just not good enough to justify playing an equip card. That's all. Yeah,
I agree.
All right, Crystal Tree.
All right, this one.
This one's just bad, right? Like you only have 3 spell trap cards, and it takes up one of them, and then it's very slow. Like you'll place a crystal card on your card every time your Crystal Beast goes into your spell and trap card zone, so very slow to build up. And then what's the payoff for all that? Is you take more Crystal Beasts from your deck and put them in your spell trap card zone.
Yeah.
When you only have 2 other ones anyway. So very slow, no payoff, and just it's bad. All right.
Yeah, probably the worst of the Crystal Beast cards we've looked at so far.
Yeah, for sure. All right, Rainbow Life. Because it has the word rainbow in it.
Here because it has rainbow in its name, and Jesse used it in the anime because it has rainbow in its name.
Yeah, and you gain life points, which is so it's Enchanted Javelin, because your opponent's not going to attack twice after they see it.
Is this not just better than Hallowed Life Barrier? Actually, now that I'm looking at it, they're the same effect, except you gain the life, and Hallowed Life Barrier you just don't take damage.
Yes, it's better, yeah.
So actually, there's no reason to run Hallowed Life Barrier unless you just need that many cards to stall with, I guess.
Yes, yeah, unless you're running them both.
Better. Yes, yeah. There you go. That's the card.
Rainbow Gravity, the bad summoner of Rainbow Dragon. There's a good one, which we didn't get.
Yeah, we got the bad one. 7 Crystal Beasts with different names on your field and or in your graveyard, so at least there's some flexibility there, because it will count the ones in your spell and trap zones. So that's cool. So summon Ultimate Crystal from your deck or grave, ignoring its summoning conditions, which again is Rainbow Dragon or Rainbow Dark Dragon.
The only thing this does is take away the need to draw Rainbow Dragon.
Right.
It's just you can now summon it from deck or graveyard instead. But that's actually nothing. Why would you waste an entire card on that?
Yeah, so, it's not very good.
No. There's also Gravel Storm, which is
yeah. Don't play this either.
Don't play this either. That's it. You can read it if you want, but we're not going to go through it. But that's all we have. We also have this weird skill. That was all that was Jesse. This is technically Yubel. But if you look on
one Yubel skill, this is the Yubel skill.
Yes, but it's Yubel Jesse, right? Because if you look on the back of the card, that's what the art is.
Yeah, because Yubel possessed Jesse in the anime.
Yes,
and used the field spell Advanced Dark, and this is literally just the field spell Advanced Dark, and it's just on a skill instead.
Yeah. So I mean, you can read it, but neither of us think it's very good, right?
Yeah.
So. Yeah,
and I guess it's what you would use maybe with Rainbow Dark Dragon, but that seems more for thematic reasons than because it's actually any good. Yeah, no,
it's exactly what it's for. Like the way to play Crystal Beasts is we're gonna show the sample deck here as the last thing. In our opinions, the way to play Crystal Beast is this concept right here, right? Where you're using your 3 best spells and traps with the better skill and your 3 best Crystal Beast monsters. You want to go more in depth into that?
I will, although to be honest, there's not a whole lot more depth to give. This is, again, it's a concept. This is not necessarily completely optimized, but a shout out to our teammate Nightblader for putting this one together. Again, it's very simple, right? Cosmics to deal with back row, which allows your Raigekis to be used more for monsters if you need them to. Conclave is nuts, so we're going to use that. Pot of Greed is great, so we're going to run some Pot of Greeds.
Yep.
And we're running the best Crystal Beast monsters, because honestly, these are the only 3 that are any kind of good, really.
Yes.
Unless then you want to try to do something with Carbuncle, but that would be the only other thing I could really see. That's pretty bad. Cobalt Eagle is very bad. Tortoise is literally just 2,000 defense with no effect.
Yeah.
Those
are really bad. Yeah. But it's, again, and this has a big core, so the core of this deck is 17 cards. So it's that union level of core, but all the cards are so good, right? Like your monster attack points are 18, 16, sometimes 2,000 and 17. So you're not going big monster, but you don't have to worry about big monsters because you have 6 removal traps.
Yeah.
Specifically for big monsters.
And that's honestly what makes this deck actually look really promising, and
Yes.
Crystal Beasts probably are going to be one of the best decks to come out of this box,
Right.
maybe one of the best decks in the format,
Yeah.
just because they have so much more disruption than any other deck that we've had. Particularly in that it's trap form, so even when you compare to something like Unions, well, they're only doing it on their turn. Crystal Beasts can hit you on either player's turn.
Yeah. And
So
that is
actually-
honestly what makes them so good. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
You're completely right. Yeah. And any crystal beast you draw into that you don't want to summon, so like Pegasus you might want to summon, but like any of these ones you draw, you just discard them to thin your deck, to get the rest of them out of your deck, essentially.
And it's also why you can afford to run 3 rare value, whereas normally 3 rare value, especially in 20 cards, would be way too bricky.
Yes.
Well, you can just discard for
Yeah.
Crystal Transcendence.
You are guaranteed to have any of these cards live if you open them, right?
Right.
Guaranteed. If you open 3 Raigeki and 1 Conclave, you can still discard 2 of them and have the other 2 be live because of the skill. And that's what makes the skill so good.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I mean, any closing thoughts? I think we're done here. So we've got 2 really good decks coming out of these 2 characters.
Yeah, I think putting these 2 together was really nice, and thank you for having me as part of this video specifically, because I honestly think these are the 2 archetypes that are showing, at least immediately, showing some of the most promise out of the GX box, or Cyber Angels and Crystal Beasts. They both,
For sure.
they're going to function very differently, but they both look to have pretty high ceilings. And I'm actually really excited, like, as the community works on those decks more, works on refining them, of seeing kind of what the finished product looks like. But they both should end up actually being really good, I think.
That's right. We've given you some ideas. We've given you some concepts. So, get building, because there's going to be some tournaments coming up. From me, from Speed Duel League, and from you too, right?
Yeah, Judgment Gaming is definitely planning on having a GX Box tournament as soon as kind of everything becomes official. Then yeah, be planning that one as well. Yep.
All right. So get ready for those tournaments, because there'll be prizes for all those. But that's all we got. 2 really good decks for you to already go and play, right? What a great way to start. What a great way to start. But thank you, Justice, for being on here. And obviously, you see Justice a lot now. You're seeing a lot more of them. I hope you guys enjoyed the meme video. Those are not the real skills. As you see, the real skills are a lot more balanced, we'll call it. We won't insult them.
We'll go with that.
Yeah. But hey, as always, like, comment, subscribe, and until Heroes, I will see you later. Justice might see you before that, but I'll see you for a hero review. Terramaster Justice, out.